About to begin. Okay, Alice, do you want to call the roll call? You're on mute, Alice. You're fine, but we're not hearing you for some reason.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Welcome to the meeting, everybody. I'm going to have the board say here, and also after they say here, to tell me if they approved of the minutes from the July 9th meeting. And so first, Andy Andrews. Not present.
He's on medical leave.
Correct. Robert Golden.
Here, and I approved the minutes.
Cheryl Kopp. She's not here. She is unable to attend. Alice Lindahl, secretary, I'm here. Patty Hatzista-Varakis is...
I'm here, and I do approve the minutes.
Phil Denny.
I'm here, Alice, and my understanding from the last meeting, as far as the minutes go, is that the budget was going to be completed by next board meeting in September, not that that's when we're going to start working on it.
Well, I ran it by several people, and they insisted that we would start working on it after this meeting and give a progress report at the end. I'm not on that committee, so, and I don't believe they have met, but the statement of the motion is that it will be discussed in September.
Right. I believe, Phil, we were going to take up your proposal at that September meeting.
Okay. Again, my understanding is that we would have worked on it by now, and that would be a completed process by then.
That's not my understanding.
The work done on the grant proposals has been all-encompassing right up to now, and my assumption is that the meeting can be pretty any time now, and work can commence on it right away, not starting next meeting, but starting now. That's my understanding. But I'm not on the committee. You guys have to work that out yourself. Okay, so we have quorum, and we can continue with the next item on the agenda, which is questions and comments from members. Am I correct, Phil, that you did not approve the minutes?
No.
No, you did not approve the minutes, correct? Is that correct?
Because of that correction that I raised.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I was, Alice, are you complete for now?
Yes.
Okay, so
we're calling for questions from the members. 3
well,
minutes.
no, I'm going to give a report first.
Oh, your report first. I'm sorry.
Right, so I'm going to give a report first, and then we're going to have time for community response and questions and concerns, 3 minutes each, and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda. But this is just my opportunity as the acting president to bring you up to date. And I really would appreciate if everyone who's not talking, just please mute. You get background noise and it interferes. So if everyone would please mute either your phone or your, however you're on, I would appreciate it. Thank you. And Patty, I cannot watch the participants in terms of someone might be entering late.
I'm watching that, yes.
Yeah, so I don't have to watch that, okay?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You bet.
So let me just go over some what's happened since our last meeting. On July 24th, the Malama Opuna submitted our Kilauea recovery grant to the county. We applied for the maximum amount of that grant, which was $500,000. That was solely to be used for road repair. And again, just you might be familiar with this. I just want to go over it so we're all clear. The three areas that we're going to focus on is the area bounded by Malama between Moku and Nohea, which we could say is the western side of Malama. Then the eastern side of Malama from, no, I apologize. That's the eastern side of Malama, from Moku to Nohea. And then from, on the western side of Malama, from Miley to Pomakai. Those streets were going to be, the cracks repaired and recovered. And obviously some streets need more work than others, such as Moku and Kapono Street. And the third part of the funds was addressed to getting the people road into the Kapuka from Leilani Avenue that adjoins from the east, where it joins in from Bohiki. And we are responsible for that section of Kahukai that comes in from Leilani on the eastern side of Leilani Community Association. So that's where the road repairs will be. We should hear from the county by August 20th in terms of their decision, whether or not they're going to fund this grant and how much. It will take about 6 months to actually receive those monies. It has to go through a fairly complicated process since the monies are large before Malama Opuna receives that money, and then they will then distribute that monies to us to begin work. Okay. 2, SBA loan. Again, I just want to repeat this, but this will be in part and order just so you're brought up to date. That the approximate in our proposal, roughly the cost estimate for repairing roads and the community center, there's a significant amount of sulfur dioxide rust that has affected the pavilion. And so the total cost for the LCA repairs is going to be $732,000. We've only applied for $500,000, and the roads will cost us roughly, we think, I don't have the exact figure in my mind, but somewhere in the areas over $500,000 for the roads, perhaps another $100,000 above that. And in September 2018, the previous LCA Board of Directors in September 2018 applied to the Small Business Administration, SBA, for a disaster relief loan. The SBA approved that amount of $358,000 at 2.5 interest with a 15-year term. To date, no funds from this loan have been dispersed to the LCA. Instead, the current LCA board has pursued several outright grants from government agencies such as FEMA. However, now we've come to the end of the SBA time extensions, and if we are to have any opportunity at all to consider utilizing these funds, we must apply for a partial disbursement by August 12th, 2020, which we have already done. We've actually contacted the SBA and telling them we want to have the loan executed for the minimum disbursement of $25,000. If this funding is not required for the LCA repairs and restoration, it can be returned to the SBA with no prepayment penalty. The terms require no principal payment for 5 months. During that time, no more than $288 in interest will accrue. This action will allow a fiduciary responsible decision to be made in the upcoming months, which can be based upon Hawaii County's decision on our grant request in combination with any loan or other funding sources eventually available to fund these expenses. So we, again, just to repeat, we have contacted and we have received a call back from the SBA. They are in the process of reinstituting our loan and no funds have been issued. The loans need to be approved formally, and again, we tend to have a minimal request of $25,000. Any subsequent amounts that we would ask for would be brought to a discussion with the Leilani community. On July 29th of this year, our lawyer, Lincoln Ashita, received a communication from the law firm of Revere and Associates, who have been retained by 4 LCA members, demanding mediation on 3 issues. Our insurance company, Travelers, that holds our directors and officers insurance, has retained Michelle Luke as our counsel in this matter. There is a $10,000 deductible on this policy that we are responsible for. We treat this matter very seriously, and the claims that have been charged will be thoroughly investigated by our counsel. We will keep you informed regarding the progress of this case. If you have questions regarding this or other matters regarding the LCA, this issue should be addressed here at this meeting or by email to admin@leilaniestates.org. Again, you've heard this before, just to repeat, we will not engage in any discussion of this or any other LCA issue on social media. Finally, the budget. At the last board meeting, we passed a motion to postpone discussion of Mr. Denny's proposal for a budget to September. And we will begin that discussions at that meeting in open community discussion. That doesn't mean we're not going to do research on our own before then, but we'll have an open meeting discussion of the issue of the budget at the September meeting. We tend to do this, it's the board's intention to do this thoroughly, legally, and with professional financial guidance. Okay, now I want to turn the comments over to the community for the chance for us to hear from them. Patty is going to host this part of our meeting, and I just want to share my screen with you so we're all clear about what is acceptable, what we're calling aloha etiquette. Patty, you want to go over this with everybody?
Sure, yeah. So this is the 3rd meeting that we've just talked about these guidelines. So let's just keep an open mind, listen to understand, be respectful of everyone on the Zoom tonight. Be concise. I'm going to time you to about 3 minutes, but I'm not going to be a total stickler about that. I want you to get your points out and your information. Try to avoid repetition. So if somebody's mentioned something before, maybe just defer to them and then bring up a new portion of your thought. Agree to disagree. Challenge ideas, not people. And use phones and devices appropriately. Okay.
Thank you.
So as in the past, I have the participants list up. I see one hand right now. So if you do have a question or a comment that you want to make at this time, please go ahead and go into your participants area, and then you should have a raise hand button there, which will then indicate to me that you would like to say something. Okay. So Marianne, you're up first. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand, and I'll ask you to unmute.
Mute.
Okay, there you are.
All right.
Okay.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. Aloha Neighbors Board. Thank you for giving me my 3 minutes. I have a 2-part question and then a statement. And if you please respond this time before you move on to the next person. So my question is, who enters the information to the monthly calendar of events? And the second part of that is, why wasn't music in the park listed? When I checked, there was hula, tai chi, neighborhood watch, movie night, and an event that I put together to bring the community together, Aloha in the Park, was not listed. So that's my question. And that if you only remember one thing that I want to say to anybody is communication, because unfortunately the second part of my comment is kind of what Robert was addressing. And my statement about this demand for mediation, I understand, is because there's no communication. So communication, mediation, yeah, you have to be able to communicate. And as a former concerned homeowner, no, I'm still a concerned homeowner. I went back and looked at the elections, what I would call propaganda that was mailed out with at the same time with the ballots, accused concerned homeowners of threatening to bankrupt and make the LCA disappear. That was not true. Didn't even understand that quite. And also it said that we kept hidden and secrets from LCA community. After that was mentioned to me, we decided to meet at the pavilion in January so anyone in the community could come. So thank you for answering my calendar of events question. Aloha.
Who would like to?
I can answer it, Robert.
Go ahead.
My husband is the webmaster for LCA, and he posts everything. Am I getting feedback? He posts everything that is sent to him, but he requires to have people call him and tell him what to put on the calendar. And so it's down there on the whiteboard, but he doesn't go down there. So there's not, someone should be calling him and telling him that what are the events that are up there. And only Kim knows which ones are like public and open and which are private parties. So Jim can't go down there and try to figure out which is an open event and which is a closed event. But that's all I know about the webmaster. He doesn't go down and take a look.
Alice, would it be an interesting idea to put a process together for contacting him for the listing of such events, and we can maybe put that in the minutes?
He has an address, webmaster@leilaniestates.org, and anybody can use that.
Yeah, and Alice, is there a form that someone could fill out on the website to post an event, so Jim wouldn't have that information and just?
You mean go straight to the calendar?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so maybe it's something we could look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do at the university. It's very easy. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Okay,
Well, I asked one question to Marion. Marion, are you satisfied? You might not like your answer, but are you satisfied that you got response to that question, to that answer about the calendar? I'll unmute you.
Because I never got a notice that the event would be happening, or I would have handed it on. Okay. I think it would be safest to put it on admin@leilaniestates.org, and then I can just slip it straight to my to the webmaster from there.
Okay.
I don't know how movie night and all that. Did they call the webmaster? I didn't know that. I assumed when you write your check and take it to Kim that somehow from that point it gets onto the calendar.
Well, we can talk to Kim about it. She holds all that information.
Go on. That's fine.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Baron, for bringing that to our attention. We'll try to make that better. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yep. Our next hand up is from Eric Johnson. So Eric, I'm going to lower your hand and I'll ask you to unmute.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to support the proposal I understand was given to you by Samuel Estes about removing the barricade and allowing improvement of the road for South Luana. And it's my understanding that Sam's offered to pay, survey, and doze the lot, as well as allowing some of the other ones of us to regain access. And I've met with Sam and Bill and a number of the other owners, and at this time, it's my understanding that none of us are really looking at building. We just simply would like to reclaim our lots and start to mark boundaries and plant some vegetation and ultimately establish a presence, because we feel with our presence there and some boundaries established, we'll be able to reduce a lot of the trespassing and hopefully increase our safety and liability. And we're hoping that you guys will give us, that written permission so that Sam can remove the barricade and proceed. And I don't feel like there's a lot of good reasons that we wouldn't be allowed to. I don't think there's any really cultural or legal obligations that would prevent us from doing this. Plenty of roads have already been reopened and plenty of lots have already been redosed from the same lava flow. I understand some residents have had concerns about, loud noises and generators and things like that, but the CCNRs, protect them for quiet hours, and as well, anybody can buy a undeveloped lot in any other part of Leilani that's still existent and doze and build, and people would have to put up the noise there. There's really no difference. And nobody would be building shacks or anything, because again, we'd have to still conform to the CCNRs if the time came that we decided to build. And we have checked, and there are currently no issues that would prevent us from putting in the road or reclaiming our property with the county or the civil defense. And I personally think it's a good idea because it's a trial run opening without expense to the association. And it seems like you guys already have a lot of expenses with reclaiming other roads that people are still regularly having to drive on and access. And it hopefully could even make a precedent that the association can't necessarily pay for other people who want to regain access to their claimed lava flows, but the homeowners association would at least be willing to support individual owners who are willing to take that on with the costs. And also, I kind of feel like there is some legal obligation there because, first of all, a lot of people have been trespassing across my land. I've seen people drive now across it, and they've actually fallen through and had to try to push their vehicle out. And I'm worried that someday I'm going to get a lawsuit because somebody falls and is injured on my property when I wasn't able to go out there really and efficiently reclaim it and mark boundaries. The Charter of Incorporation for Leilani says that you guys will help to maintain the roads and access and safety. And we feel like this is kind of doing all of those things. And the CCNRs also give us the right for those roads to be used and for us to be provided with legal easements as owners. Also, the Hawaii state law and the laws governing homeowner associations allows us access to our properties that we own. Personally, it's my hope that you guys are going to agree that we can remove the barricade, we can proceed forward, Sam can open those lots for us, and we hope that you're going to work with us. That's ideal in any situation, because at the end of the day, these are our properties, and all of us are very intent on being able to re-access and reclaim our properties. And nobody wants to have to deal with any kind of legalities or headaches or costs that go with that. So personally, I'm hoping that all of us can work together and come up with some kind of a solution which will allow Sam and the rest of us to move forward. That's all I have to say, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that, Eric. That was very well said. I appreciate that. We're actually going to approach this subject a little bit later in the meeting. So if you don't mind, I'd like to hold comments until we reach that section. And if you have any additional comments after that, you can, come back on. Okay. As of this moment, I don't see any other hands raised.
We have banned.
Anyone else? Okay, here we go. Okay, it looks like.
All right, can you hear me?
You have banned me on.
Yes.
Banded? Yep, I'll lower your hand and turn your microphone on. There you go.
All right. So I got some invoices from you guys. I think it was this last week or maybe the week before. Just wondering about the policy concerning putting speed bumps in. As far as what it takes to put speed bumps in. Because my understanding is that as members, we need to get 75% of our neighbors' signatures as well to put speed bumps in. And then we pay for it ourselves. And then the LCA agrees to maintain them after we've already paid for them. Is that true?
I'm an expert on speed bumps since we're doing the Miley speed bumps. And there is a policy in the LCA files about how to go about and what criteria you have to meet to put speed bumps on your road. And it is true that you need a large majority of the members. I don't remember the exact number, but if you email me at admin@leilaniestates.org, I will send you the documents. There's about 3 of them, and they include the state of Utah's criteria for speed bumps. You can't just go out there and pile up a bunch of dirt, you know, and I think they're afraid people will. But you have to buy ones that meet certain Department of Transportation codes for durability. And we on Miley Street are going to install them ourselves. We have five people in a team who have experience doing this. And the installation is actually the most important thing. I mean, the most difficult thing to manage. We bought ours at Home Depot. They cost about, I believe, $1,400 a bump. And so we're the experimental people here, and you can come watch what it takes for us to get in. We hope to get them in the next few weeks in good weather and everybody available. But I would be glad to send you all those criteria. I went through them when we did this for our street.
Okay, so will we as members get reimbursed for those speed bumps?
You have to get a approval from the board of directors to get reimbursement. And the Miley Street bumps, we asked for 6. We needed a minimum of 6. And the board gave us 2. And we bought those 2. And we're going to have to collect among the other residents to be able to afford to put in the other 6. That's
Okay.
what happened to us.
Okay, 'cause in some of that stuff, I saw that the board reimbursed the person for the speed bumps.
They reimbursed me 2,000, I don't know, 600 something for the speed bumps that I purchased. That's correct. But they did say they would buy 2, and they were as good as their word.
Okay, but they're just not put in yet?
They are not put in yet.
All right. Thank you.
We can show them to you. They're in my backyard right now. They're kind of cool looking. But I think that it's really important to get somebody who knows how to put them in, you know, so that they don't come loose and create a hazard kind of thing. But they do trust us to put them in.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Next up, I have Jim Penny. Jim, I'll lower your hand and ask you to go ahead and unmute.
All right, can everybody hear me? Yes,
I
no?
can, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
I want to go back to an issue that I raised previously, and that specifically has to do with a report that we got from Cheryl on the expenses that were estimated initially of all the things that had to be done. And we were told, I think at the last, it could have been 2 meetings ago, that there were 2 lists, one submitted by Rod Kendall, if I'm not supposed to mention names, I don't know how to get by that, and another by someone else later that was an update. And then I corresponded with the board and said, I'd like to know which ones have been done. And for the ones that haven't been done, are there outstanding bids and have they been approved or not? And because of the application for the 500,000, that was rolled off. But since that's been completed, I'd like an update. That's part 1. Part 2 is I'm looking at the list of the recommended items here, and front gate, I noticed repair $1,800 and $2,000 was the refurbish the bathrooms. That's the most expensive things on this list, which adds up to, and it varied from $24,000 to $29,000, I think, on the 2 lists. In any case, today we're going to be taking up this procurement and contracting policy, and it allows for anybody on the board, it looks like, to approve up to $5,000. None of these items are anywhere near that amount of money. And I just think based on our history here for the last 50 or so years, $5,000 is an extraordinarily high amount. I think it ought to be considerably less, even down to less than $1,000. So, I'd like, again, a list of what hasn't been done, has it been bid on, and or even contracted, where we stand on, and what yet is left undone or expected to be done. And then secondarily, I'd certainly like some conversation about reducing the amount that you all are proposing on the procurement and contracting policy. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board want to speak to that? Otherwise, I'll speak to it a little bit.
I just keyed in on the first one that he said. The goods and services with the limit of $5,000 includes aggregated expenses for a service that lasts up to a year. So that's not for like a single item. It's for services that that we would be using over and over again.
What about cutting down the trees, which was like $8,000, and repairing the fence, which was like another $8,000? Neither of those things, by the way, were on the list. There was a cutting down of a dead ohia tree, $100 estimate. And we spent the better part of $20,000 on just those two items.
There were many trees in that invoice.
Well, we never saw any of those. That was only after the fact.
Okay, so Cheryl is not here at this meeting. I don't have that list in front. I don't have that list in front of me. Jim, what I suggest we do is actually have a meeting with, we'll have a meeting together to go over that and to clarify any questions you have, and we'll do that not now, but in the next week or two.
That'll be fine. That's
Okay.
part one. And then with regard to Alice's comment, though, and I just want to say this because I have a history of doing this. For anybody that doesn't know, if you ever transfer more than $10,000 out of the country, the government wants to know. And so to conveniently get around that, I've had bankers say, let's do 900, then we'll do another 95 and so on. And what our policy that you're proposing doesn't address is some compilation of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 items, all of which are less than 5,000, but it turns out in the aggregate to exceed that amount of money. So somewhere in there, I'd like somebody to at least give that some thought.
Okay. Thank you. And again, we're going to take up the procurement policy in the body of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, I don't have a name here, so please identify yourself when I ask you to unmute, but I have Samsung SMG390V. I'm gonna lower your hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I don't get this. It's Richard Skidmore. I'm not on video. I don't have all the fancy equipment that everybody else apparently has, but I'm on audio.
Okay.
So like a bad penny, I keep bringing up the legal expenses. So here I am again before you, I think for the 3rd month in a row regarding legal expenses. The legal expenses report that I pointed out last month at the meeting and the month before in an email, which is a falsification in my opinion of actual expenses, is still showing that only $5,000 was spent between July 2019 and March 20. So my issue is, at the last meeting, I appreciate the treasurer's honesty in reporting actual expenditures, and they were reflected in the July 9th minutes. Those amounts totaled over $27,000 for legal fees from December 2019 through May 2020. Okay. In June, according to the P&L, another legal expense was $11,000. And I understand now that there's an outstanding July statement from the lawyer saying there's a balance of $57,000 that's still due. That brings the total in legal expenses to over $95,000 just in the past 8 months. That's crazy. My question is, I would like to know when the treasurer's updated report on legal expenses that she referenced in the July 9th meeting, and it referenced in the minutes, have been cut off.
Sorry.
And 2, what, if anything, is being done to bring these outrageous legal expenses under control? I mean, it's just totally out of control. And it goes from bad to worse. That's my question.
So to some extent, I would agree with you that they are out of control, and they're out of control because if people sue the LCA, then we're responsible to protect the integrity of his organization, and that incurs legal expenses. What I would invite, Richard, is again, similar to what I just said with Jim, is to actually, so you get satisfied, to have a meeting, you know, with the treasurer, and with other members of the board to go over these issues.
I don't need a meeting. I just need someone just to be
I
honest.
exactly, well, that will, at the meeting, I'm saying that's if you really want to get resolution of these issues and get clarity on these issues, it's going to demand, it's going to need a one-on-one meeting to go over this. And if you're still dissatisfied, well, then you can come back the following month, you know, and make the issues again. But I think a productive way of handling this is to sit down and have a conversation so we're all clear, you know, about your concerns and try to answer your points one by one. This can't happen in this forum like this, but what you have done is to raise the issue for us. And I do want to say the board is also concerned about legal costs. And it's why we have put out, I have actually put out an email to some people who felt aggrieved, say, please contact us so we can have a conversation. Unfortunately, they did not do that. So after this meeting, Richard, I will call you tomorrow and try to organize this meeting with you. Is that agreeable?
Well, I just don't see it as a meeting with me. I see it as a responsibility of the board to get together and discuss it and figure out what to do about it.
Well, yeah, but Richard, I want to, you constantly bringing up issues about expenditures. We want to go over to explain these expenditures to you so you understand. Okay.
Well, I've been explained by Andy that a big part of it is a $39,000 settlement for some lawsuit that was earlier in 2019, and the $95,000 number I just quoted is for the last 8 months. It doesn't include the 39.
Okay, so again, Richard, right now I don't have those facts and figures in front of me, and I would like to begin a way of resolving this with you. And so I think step one, I'm not saying it's the last step, but step one is sitting down, having a conversation with all this material in front of us to get clarity, to begin to get some answers. I'm just saying it's step one.
Okay, the material should include the report that Cheryl said she's working on, which is the actual expenses. Okay. Do I get a second question, or do I get in line for another?
Robert, can
Actually,
hold on, I think that Alice wants to add something. Alice,
I just want to say that we made an effort last meeting to outline all of that, and I did an unusual thing. I wrote down every word Cheryl said, and she categorized all the legal expenses into different checks and how much each check was for, and they were almost exclusively over challenges to challenges to the board that we were doing something illegal and we needed, and also the lawsuit. And the bills don't come due until the lawsuit is completely over. So it was in that window, I believe. But we tried to itemize it as well as we could without boring everybody. But if you sit down with us, we can go over it check by check.
Alice, I do understand that. I do understand that. And the $27,000 I noted from December 19 to May 20 are directly from your minutes from Cheryl's report out. And that's what, that's where the number came from.
Right. Well, she can divide that even finer and say, this is because somebody objected to this. This is because somebody objected to that and threatened us. And that,
or like
so,
or like what caused $57,000 all of a sudden to be in July when the only P&L shows $100.
I don't have the figures in front of me. I'm sorry, so I can't visualize what you're talking about. But I think you should sit down with us. It's very revealing to do, and it won't take that long because Cheryl is putting it together.
I would be willing to do that, but it depends on Cheryl having that report too. So do I still get a second question, or should I get back in the queue?
Richard, if you wouldn't mind getting back in the queue, I have Greg Armstrong on the line that hasn't gotten a chance to speak yet, so I'd like to give him that opportunity. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, Greg, you are up. I'll lower your hand. And if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Yep, it looks like you're unmuted.
Okay, I just have 3 comments. One, I'll do this one first about the the invoices for legal fees. I had requested copies of the attorney fees invoices, which I have not received. I got one summary and a copy of Ray Hasagawa's bill, which was itemized, but I didn't get the rest of them yet. The other, in regard to the speed humps actually, there was already a policy in place to protect the LCA so that if anybody wanted speed humps on their street, you had to get a 75% approval of everyone on your street within a certain amount of feet from where the speed hump was going to be. If they got the 75%, you had to, those individuals had to pay for it and have it installed. Once it was installed, then LCA would take over maintenance of the speed humps. So it just kind of bothers me that that policy was changed and one of the board members is the first one to take advantage of it. And my third thing is the proposal that you're bringing forward today about the expenditures. It's always been, as long as I was on the board and who knows how many years before that, it's always been a $500 limit for the board. Anything above 500 had to come before the board to be discussed and approved. And with all the questions we've had about expenditures over the last year and a half, I think your proposal of up to $5,000 is outrageous. I mean, you'll still be able to spend without us knowing what's going on, and I don't think that's right. So that's my three things.
Greg, if I could answer one of your questions.
Yes.
When our street applied for the speed bumps, I was not on the board. So it wasn't a matter of favoritism to a board member. I wasn't a board member.
Was that policy still in place though? Because if that policy was still in place, you can't just go around the policy and approve something.
Well,
Greg, I
wasn't involved in the approval.
Greg, I was on the board then, and I remember that the board took into consideration that part of the problem on Miley Street was caused by Section 1, that people were coming in from Section 1, and so this was an issue beyond Miley Street, and so the board felt some responsibility to help out Miley Street given their geographic location next to Section 1.
But what would have helped would have been if you had talked to some of the previous board members to figure out why we did what we did. Because as soon as the speed bumps go on or speed humps go on Miley Street, all they're going to do is move down to Analoa. Then Analoa's going to want it.
Okay, so if I in fact remember correctly, and I might be wrong about that, I think Mark was still president of the board at that point. I might be wrong about that. And Greg, also as a representative, you could have come forward and spoken to us.
That's what I'm doing.
I know, but after the fact.
If I'm just finding out, I mean, I didn't know that you guys are changing these things.
Well, okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next hand is the Bandmans again. I'll go ahead and lower if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, it's Valerie. So first of all, just about the speed humps, I would just say that Capono and Moco probably needed them more than Miley, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, I just wanted to touch on the election and ballots because I know it's been a while, but we were just able to finally view them after being denied over and over and over again. Anyways, we were not, I just wanted to make it public that we were not questioning the League of Women Voters and how they tallied the ballots. So when we went in to view what we wanted to view. It wasn't the ballots and how they were counted. It wasn't that at all. What we wanted to see was the ballots that were not counted, that you don't show on your website, but the ones that came in, trickling in from all different places. And we wanted to see how many of those came in and that weren't counted, and they weren't even tallied, and they weren't on your sheets. And the reason why that is because I spoke to Susan, League of Women Voters, and she told me that she had recommended that the ballots be sent out at least 6 weeks prior to when they were due. And the reason, my concern was because of COVID and all that, even on USPS posted on news flashes on Google and everything, that if you want to get your stuff out and it gets somewhere on time, you better get your bills sent out early if you're mailing them or whatever, because mailing is very slow because of COVID. Now, you mailed the ballots out with 19 days before, from the time you mailed them, 19 business days to the time that League of Women Voters were supposed to get the ballots. That was not enough time. We spoke to people in the mainland that did not get their ballots until a day or two before they were supposed to be to the League of Women Voters. So I just wanted to say that there were several envelopes that came in that were not counted ballots, that were from all over the place. And they were, and I looked at them and they were sent out, you know, anywhere from 5 days before they were due, but they didn't come in time, but they weren't counted, which I don't think is fair. And then, and I don't know who they voted for. I'm just saying it's not fair. Another thing that, so my question to the board is also, while we were there, Susan was handed a manila envelope full of ballots that she did not know about, that she did not see before, that were opened ballots, and she was quite upset, you could tell, and we asked to view those ballots because those were ballots that were evidently given or put in envelopes and put in the box, which we have no idea when they got there or anything. Do you guys have any?
So, Valerie, Valerie, I'm not clear what your question. Are you saying?
My question is, do you know about those ballots and
Are you
why?
talking about the ballots? Are you talking about the ballots on March 21st?
No, I'm talking about the ballots that were handed to her.
When?
Day before yesterday.
I was there, and I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember, because I certainly didn't give her any ballots.
No, Kim gave her a manila envelope, and it was full of ballots that were left in the office.
Well, I know nothing about that. I absolutely know nothing about that, and I could look into that, Valerie.
Okay.
This is the first time. I will look into that, and I'll find out what that all means.
Yeah, what I'm saying, the ballots, so Susan was quite upset and kind of flustered because those ballots were already opened.
Right. So again, I don't know. I will find out. So Sue spoke to me. She did not report that situation at all when we were concluding the meeting. That was not.
I think Phil was there. Were you not, Phil?
No, Phil had left by that point. At the end, Phil.
In
the beginning. You're right. Phil was there in the beginning. You're correct.
He was there the whole time. Yeah. So that's why I was posing it to the board, because maybe Phil could answer about that.
Well, I can just confirm what you've said, Valerie, is that Kim came out of the office and handed Susan Irvine a large manila envelope full of ballots that had not been counted but had been opened.
Okay, okay. And we don't know anything about why because she said she stated to us, you heard her, that she didn't know anything about that there was even ballots there.
And right, and I know nothing about it either, and the first thing I'll do tomorrow is to inquire about that, and I'll get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next hand I see is from Jim Penny. Go ahead.
Yes, just with regard to all of these side meetings that Robert's proposed, whether it's me or Richard or Valerie or whomsoever, I know there are other people, there's 34, 35 people here on this meeting that may be equally concerned. So can we come up with some way to report back at the next meeting that these off-site meetings occurred, here was the resolution, was it satisfactory, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, we just go in and.
Right, excellent. I like that. And we'll have, at the end of those meetings, have come to like a statement that we both agree what took place and were we able to resolve it? Or if we weren't able to resolve it, what is left unresolved?
Perfect, that's all I asked, thank you.
You will get that.
Sounds good, thanks, Jim. Okay, Richard, you are up next. I'm gonna go ahead, lower your hand, unmute yourself, there you go.
All right, it's a quickie, promise. So before the July meeting, there was a statement there was going to be some proposed bylaw revisions that were under legal review, and if they didn't come out 10 days before the July 9th meeting, they'd be in the August meeting. So I'm just wondering, since they didn't come out before this meeting, what the status is.
That's a great question, and they're on hold right now. We have, to use an expression, bigger fish to fry, and we need to take care of other issues, particularly the issues of this legal challenges that we're currently facing. So okay. Once all those issues are resolved, because we are trying to modernize the bylaws, and that's our goal. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next up we have Ann Calber. Ann, I'm gonna go ahead and lower your hand. And go ahead.
Right. Ann Calber on Capono Street. I'm concerned to hear that ballots from the last election were given to members of the community to view. I'm concerned because my vote went in to be counted by the League of Women's Voters and not by open committee people to see what my vote is. I'm concerned that people in the community seem to want to go after events rather than try to work with the community. And I just, my heart goes out to the fact that a lot of these board members are putting so much time and energy in. The function of this board is amazing. It is working like a fine business. And the amount of energy put by outside people to seem to continue to want to put issues out, things that are established and then continually brought up, and then to hear additional lawsuits being brought up. I mean, it just seems like a double-edged sword. People are saying our expenses are too high, and other people are saying, no one's talking to us, so we want to go into mediation. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense. If you're asked to join meetings and attend with people, let's show up. Let's make open meetings. Let's get people there to talk about stuff. But it's really affecting the community, because I'm running into neighbors and I'm saying the second organization outside of the Leilani board is causing a lot of headaches and getting a lot of people upset that don't need to be upset. Take that energy and bring it to the board and work with the board, you know? So I get frustrated because I see people that are putting in time and energy both outside the board and in the board, that is not getting things done. You know, it's a lot of wasted time and energy. So I guess my question is, I'd like clarification on the issues regarding ballots, because in my mind, no one in the public other than the women, League of Women Voters should have their hands on those ballots, and they should not be public. That's not how I submitted my ballot. So I'd like some clarity on that.
Anne, I appreciate your comments. I don't know how I can answer your question accurately. I don't want to be inaccurate. And I will try to get you, I will get you that information. I think the only, can you just
Robert, if I may comment, this is Phil Denny. I was there yesterday or Wednesday. The ballots had the names of the voters removed. There was no personal information on the ballot. There was no way to tell who voted for whom. Even the ballots that were voided were also mutilated so that there was no personal information there.
Right.
The only ballots that had any names on them, I think, and again, I can't be certain, Valerie may be able to tell me since she actually examined them, but the only ballots were the ones that were handed to her at that meeting on Wednesday that had been stored in the LCA office and had been opened.
Why was the need for people to go and see the ballots? This is the League of Women Voters. That's a national organization. That is their primary purpose, is to do ballots. Why would anybody take the time or waste the time of the association to go in to look at these ballots? That is none of their business.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. I hear that.
Robert, can I mention something about the ballots?
Yes.
This is totally blindsided us. We had no idea. There wasn't any method for anything to go into the office. And Kim will probably know, and until we have a chance to talk to her and to Susan, we're just as confused as you are.
Right. I should add, this is the first time that the Hawaiian chapter of League of Women Voters has gone through this process. And they have hundreds, thousands of elections they supervised. And this is the first time they've ever had to come back and they have a review done like this. It's never happened before. So that's all I want to say right now.
Thank you.
But I do appreciate, Anne, your comment about the sentiment, and I believe the board is fully behind this sentiment, that we want people to come in to have conversations with us, and that things will be solved through conversations, not through legal action.
Thank you. We've all gone through so much with this eruption. We should be standing together and holding each other up and working towards. And like I say, I thank the Leilani board, because the amount of work that you have been doing to save the assets that we have as a community has been we're very thankful for. Thank you.
Thank you for your sentiment. Patty?
Yep. Okay, next up I have Lee. Lee, I'll go ahead and lower your hand if you would unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Yep.
Fine. I had a question to the board. I'll make a comment first. The people that know me know that I retired from a Fortune 100 company. And in that company, I held a travel credit card. I also held a purchasing credit card. My previous company was a Fortune 250 company, of which I held the same two cards. And I now work for one of the largest government agencies in the United States. And I too have a purchasing card. And in not one of those instances am I allowed to purchase anything over $2,500 without direct approval and prior approval from my management and my officers, my fiscal officers that I have to report to. You all have come up with a $5,000 limit. Please tell me what organizations that you know of that allow that, because I want to go work for them. And because that is ridiculous to have $5,000 a month that you can account for and only approve after it's been purchased. The other thing that someone alluded to was we call it partialing, where you agree to pay someone $4,999 a month for the next 3 months. And we have in place where I work now that if you submit a claim the second month in a row, it's on you. You pay for it. They're not going to allow partialing of goods and services out. So you need to realize what you guys are doing. It's a can of worms. And unchecked, there's a reason why these people that are in Fortune 100 companies and Fortune 500 companies do what they do. And I can't see where the 4 or 5 of you are any better than those major corporations and why you have to have something so outlandish. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, I'm going to the Bandmans. I see your hand is technically next, but since you've spoken already, I'm going to go to David. He hasn't gotten to speak yet, so you'll be next in line then. I'm going to lower your hand, David. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I would like some more clarification. Well, when you get the report, I would like a clarification on the ballots. I would like to know what the source of those ballots were, how they came to be in the hands of the board, and I would like to know how many ballots were involved and what percentage of the total votes cast were they.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You'll know when we know, but they were not in the hands of the board. We never saw them.
Okay. Now, Bandmans, you're back up. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, I just wanted to address and really quickly on those ballots. Like, maybe I didn't make myself clear. I apologize. The League of Women Voters, very respectful. We were not questioning the League of Women Voters and I didn't even look at the ballots. So that was not what my intention was. Like I said, there are people in the mainland that didn't get their ballots in time that they felt. So they were like, I wonder if my ballot even counted. And so I know it, a lot of us are fortunate that we got to stay in our homes and they weren't lost in the lava, but many people were displaced and so they had to go back to the mainland and everything. So basically, I apologize if that upset you, but I was looking to see the ballot, not the ballots. I was looking to see the envelopes for the people that sent them in that were not counted. They weren't even looked at, but they came in after the fact of that everything was closed. I wanted to see when the date was that they actually mailed them from the mainland or Canada or Japan or wherever these were coming from, because I mean, I personally think that their vote should count. And like I said, I don't know who they voted for, but I believe their vote should count because, they took the time to vote and it wasn't their fault that the ballots were mailed out late and that COVID hit and the mail system was screwed up. And so I just thought, well, maybe even the board or whatever would have agreed that because of all of this that happened, that those votes could have counted, because like I said, I had people ask me to check and see if their votes had counted. I personally think that it's okay to count people's votes. I don't know who they voted for. Some of them I didn't ask, you know? And so I hope that answers your question, Anne. We weren't there for very long we actually chit-chatted a little bit about different things with the League of Women Voters that had nothing to do with the ballots. We didn't look at the ballots. The top portion of them were cut off that took off the name and anything that showed like what lot number or anything. So the only thing that we could legally view if we were going to view is the part that's marked to who they voted for. We have no idea who voted, no idea, but like I said, none of us really did that because we felt that the League of Women Voters did their jobs. We were just in question of the ones that weren't on the website of the mail that came in after the fact and when was it postmarked. And because of COVID, it was delayed, like even a month. It was literally delayed even a month on some of them because, I mean, one of them was sent from Honolulu and it took a month to get, I mean, like 3 of them, I think, were sent from Honolulu and it took a month for them to get here. That's kind of crazy, but I hope that answers your question, Anne. I didn't want to waste their time either. I just wanted to get back to the people that talked to me and let them know that, you know, number one, the names on the envelopes were cut off, so I couldn't tell, but I could tell them, okay, yes, I saw one that came from Salt Lake City, or yes, I saw 2 that came from Canada, but I don't know if they were theirs, and they weren't counted. So that's all I was going to do. I hope that that answers your question and that helps you feel better and not so upset. It was not our intention to look at anybody's ballots per se.
Valerie, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is it true that you wanted to see a list of the names of people who voted?
No, I wanted to see a list of who got the votes that counted, because Kayola and I were asking if our votes got counted. We didn't even know if our votes got counted. So we specifically asked if she had a list of the names of the people that their votes counted and how.
Exactly. Right. No, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. And she said to you that that was illegal, that she could not provide that information to you.
I did not personally ask for that. I'm sorry. I asked if my votes counted.
Well, exactly. But she could not give over to you a list of people whose votes couldn't pick up.
No, I did not ask. I personally didn't ask for a list of people's names that voted.
Okay.
I did not ask for that, Robert.
Okay.
No,
All right.
you're wrong. I asked if my
Well, this is just what was reported to me. The other thing is, I wanted just so it's clear for the record, the ballots were mailed out on February 18th from upstate New York.
Ballots were mailed out on the 27th.
Well, that's not what we were told.
Our ballots reflect that. Do you have your ballot? Because you can look at it.
No, I don't have my ballot. All I'm saying is, look, I'm not saying, that's all I'm telling you, the information I was told. You know, that the organization that was responsible for putting in the mail, you know, and I believe it's the correct date. It was February 18th. Okay.
February 27th, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have it right here in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, February 27th, and that was 19 working days. And normally they are mailed out the first part of February, and that actually coincides with what Susan, the League of Women Voters, said that she recommends 6 weeks prior to, at least 6 weeks prior to. If you'd like me, I can take off I can try and video and put it up to the screen.
No, no, it's not necessary.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Sorry. Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, and at this time, I'm not seeing any additional hands. So I'll give a last call if anyone has any comments, suggestions. If not, we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic.
The next topic is the treasurer's report. Cheryl is unable to be here with us today, but she has posted the July 31st treasurer's summaries, and they can be found on the LCA website. She's had them up there for a little while. And these are the things that are usually handed out at meetings so that people can see that on the website if they'd like to have a summary treasurer's report that way. And so the next item on the agenda is the secretary's report, and that's me. I have had a pretty busy week fielding, or pretty busy month fielding admin at leilaniestates.org messages, because people are getting really good at using that format. And something that came up that turned out to be important was that we had discovered that there were people not social distancing and not wearing masks at the community center while recreating and being with groups. And on July 20th, Harry Kim made a pronouncement called COVID-19 version 9, where he said it's time for us to go back to social distancing and wearing masks. And he included a 28-page list of all the details of situations people might be in. And for outdoor recreation, groups were definitely allowed to practice individual skills, but contact sports or safe distancing is not possible or not allowed indoors or out. That would be rugby, football, basketball, and wrestling. And the reason I say it came up on admin is that a resident got a hold of me and said there's a very large group of basketball players playing a competitive game on Sunday, August 2nd, and it was in conjunction, it looked like to her, with a party with food set out in a buffet style, which is also not okay with social distancing. And as we looked into this, of course, this was a Sunday, we found that the group had not reserved the pavilion for their event. They just used it. And we have to be careful that we know who's there and we know who's renting our place. And of course, that gives us the opportunity to make sure they follow the COVID rules. And we had a bunch of signs made, and they arrived yesterday, and they're now down at the community center reminding everybody of the current rules. And we expect that families will want to come and shoot baskets and that kind of fun down in the pavilion, and that sort of activity is totally allowed. But we'd like to remind people that in order to rent a whole pavilion and have it be exclusively for the use of your group requires a $200 deposit and a sign up so we know who you are. And so that is my message from the secretary's desk, the most important thing that happened there. And I have a second report, which is what happened this month with the secret committee. And we did have one fairly big event in terms of an arrest in Leilani, and it was an arrest of a person who's been giving us a lot of trouble these last most of this year, and his name was Jack Brenhoff, and he was out on bail and living in Leilani and giving his neighbors a pretty hard time. And he was apprehended in Pahoa by the police. He was driving without a license. He had drugs with him. He was carrying an unlicensed firearm. And one of the reasons that it caused so much attention with the police is that he was arrested on April 24th, 2018, with $93,000 worth of drugs on Copono Street. So it was really the biggest drug bust of a very long time on the Big Island, and they were watching him carefully. But he was immediately taken to a federal facility in Honolulu, and they guaranteed that he would never be out on bail and will face trial for his arrest. So that was a big relief for the neighbors in that neighborhood. And gee whiz, take a breather there. I also have,
Alice,
yeah.
could you, I mean, I appreciate that. I want to know, can we recognize people who are responsible for making this happen?
Yes, and we are going to be talking about that at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And the problem is a lot of it has a kind of an angle on the CCNR issues, because the kind of places where these folks stay are the big trashy places and junkyards, and they live there, and that's where this guy and other people were living as well. And I have reported in the previous 2 meetings that we're attempting to establish a fine structure that is not a terrific structure, but a money structure for money fines for CCNR violations, and to have them put into our either policies so that we can have much more clout in asking people to correct their CCNR violations. And we have what we call what do you call this thing? The charter that shows what we're attempting to do. We want to establish which are the most egregious and situations that we should charge the highest fines for. We should know how much those fines should be in order to get the attention of the perpetrators, and also how long we will wait before we raise those fines. And we've been advised by many people that we should not make this decision in the board. It should be a members group that makes the decision. And I have gotten 3 volunteers to help me with this project, and they will be creating their recommendation for those 3 things. I won't say them over again because it's getting kind of redundant. And the 3 volunteers are Janet Morrow, a neighbor of mine up near Kula Street on Leilani Avenue, Mark Ellis, who lives on Miley Street, and Jay Turkowski, whom you all know, who lives on Komakai Street. And we really needed Jay's input on this because he has had so much experience being the president of the board himself for so long, and knowing how people react to fines and how they react to management of CCNRs. And so I would like at this point to make a motion for the board's consideration. I would like to make the motion that we accept these 3 volunteers, Janet Morrow, Mike Ellis, and Jay Turkowski, as volunteers to serve on this committee until such time that they can come up with a recommendation to present to the board. And I anticipate this will be done by the next meeting, as we only need about 3, I would say 3 or maximum 4 Zoom meetings to establish this policy. I would be the board member who is chairing the meeting, but I will not be making the decisions or the recommendations. I'm just going to provide them with the framework to work in. And that's not a very concise motion, but I would like to make that motion, and I'd like to know if there's a second.
Can I ask a question, Alice, before?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So you're thinking that these 3 people in the next month or so will come back to the board at the September meeting with a proposal of said fees for each one of the CCNRs in question.
Correct. We're not going to divide the CCNRs into 17 different fine structures. We're going to lump them together, and they will decide how big the lumps will be in terms of, you know, the worst group, the next worst group. And my sense is it's probably going to be either 3 or 4 groups, because some of the violations do not antagonize or make life hard for their neighbors. Some are a lot worse than others, and those should come first. And so I'm still waiting for a second for the motion.
I can second that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so any further discussion? So let's call the question. All those for Alice's proposal, raise your hand. Okay, so it's all four of us. So
Okay. So 4-4, and there's only 4 of us here. So
right.
Yeah, unanimous. Okay.
I vote no.
Oh, you vote no. Oh, sorry. Okay, so it's 3-1, but that's still majority.
Okay. Motion passes. I did also, as a result of talking to people about being on this committee, got an excellent suggestion about CCNRs that I want to pass on to people. And this person said, we should really be getting, every time you buy a lot in Leilani or a house, you sign a document that says that you understand what the CCNRs are, and that you also understand that if you don't obey the CCNRs, or you can be charged a fine, and you have to acknowledge that. So he thought it would be really helpful for us to be able to remind people that they did agree to the CCNRs. Now, most people are all in favor of the CCNRs and are not negative about it at all. But I thought that was a good suggestion, and I'm going to call all the real estate agents I know and see if they can help me find out how to do that.
Alice, would you include the fee schedule with that letter so they have everything up front?
Well, what I did was I gave them a sample fee schedule from the Hawaii County. I could show it to you, but I don't have it on my computer right here. But it shows a little array, a little box showing, what the first fine would be for how long, 2 months at blah, blah, blah. And it was for leaving a junkyard in your front yard. The county does not allow junkyards in front yards, just like we don't. And that gave them, the people, an idea of how many different numbers they would come up with, and make it easy to calculate how much debt people would accrue if they didn't, if they ignored it, say, for a year.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to move on. Do you have another question, Patty?
No, I don't, but I see that David has raised his hand. Are we going to take questions after each, or should we hold them to the end?
Let's hold them to the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, let me say, is this directly related to CCNRs?
Yeah, I understand the reason for doing what you're talking about. I'm just wondering if all of the members of the association have received that document.
Have received what?
You were talking about a document given to new owners?
Right. Yeah, it's in the closing papers for people who are buying property. And I have a feeling that not everybody signs those. Like if you get, I don't know, a quick claim deed from a relative or something like that, that might not result in having that.
Okay, so if everybody got them in closing papers, you wouldn't need to do any kind of extra.
Well, you could just keep it with their file. Everybody gets a welcome letter file, and
Sure.
When they first come, and we just keep that, and we could keep it with that.
Sure. So it should be on file for all members of the association.
Yeah.
Well, everybody has their own documents. That big fat wad they give you when you walk out of the office, and so everybody will have their own copy of that.
Okay, so you'll have signed copies for all the members in the office.
They would have to agree to hand them over. So we haven't even gotten to first base on this yet. It's just an idea.
Okay, just asking. I as a new member and a new owner, I don't want it to be automatically assumed that I'm.
No, I think we'd ask for them, but I don't really know how to do that either. I'm just bringing it up.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Okay. Phil, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Robert. I'd like to make a short statement, and I'd have a couple of motions that I'd like to make in hopes of getting a second to discuss. First of all, my statement, I object to the Leilani Community Association's decision made in a secret meeting from which I was excluded to borrow money from the Small Business Administration. Despite mine and others' efforts, we still have no budget. To encumber the LCA with debt in the absence of a budget and detailed spending plan is, in my opinion, fiscally irresponsible and only encourages the board of directors to treat our treasury as a slush fund. In addition, I object to the proposal to allow unchecked spending of up to $5,000 without prior board approval. All LCA expenditures should be budgeted and approved in advance. We must live within our means and not allow deficit spending. Unfortunately, I have been excluded from discussions and decision-making regarding these and other issues, which I believe is part of a plan to limit my ability to voice the concerns of those who elected me. As Board of Directors President Andy Andrews stated to me on 5/18, quote, "I will try to make your year on the board miserable," end quote. Secondly, I'd like to make a couple of motions here. First, I'd like to move that the LCA Board of Directors provide each board member with complete detailed invoices for legal services rendered to the association by Lincoln Ashita Esquire from January 19, 2019 to the present. Do I have a second?
Phil, would you mind just saying that again? I was trying to take some notes.
I move that the LCA Board of Directors provide each board member with complete detailed invoices for legal services rendered to the association by Lincoln Ashita Esquire from January 2019 to the present.
And what would be the purpose of these documents?
The purpose would be to find out where our legal expenses went. The summary was inadequate, in my opinion, and was not useful. I'd like to know where our money went specifically for what issues. I don't need to know who was involved, and I certainly expect that names of members be redacted, but I'd like to see specifically how this money was spent.
Phil?
Okay, yes.
Can I invite you to this meeting we're going to have with Richard Skidmore?
Sure.
I think that will answer some of those questions.
Okay, so I assume I have no second to my motion. So let me move on. I want to make a couple of more. I'd like to move that there be no further spending by the LCA board until a final detailed 2020-2021 budget is adopted, with exceptions for employee expenses, utilities, and equipment expenses only. Okay, no second. Thirdly, I move that the board implement in a timely manner each and every recommendation made by the auditor in his report of 11/25/2019.
Could you restate that motion? Could you state that motion? I didn't miss the first
I move that the board implement in a timely manner each and every recommendation made by the auditor in his report of November 25th, 2019.
Is this the budget?
This was
what
the
audit is that?
partial cash audit done by Carbonaro and Associates.
Right. So I suggest, Phil, that those recommendations will be taken up by us when we discuss the budget in September. And then we can vote on them at that point in an intelligent way.
This will drag into almost a year after these recommendations were made, I would point out. Nonetheless, so I have no second for that motion. The next motion I'd like to make, and I'm almost finished, is I move that an inventory of all the association's fixed assets be made as soon as possible. No second.
And
Nobody's interested.
Phil,
don't know what that
what's the
is.
purpose on that one as well?
I'd like to know what we own. I'd like to know, this is for budget purposes. I'd like to know what we own and what its projected useful life may be so
Right.
that we can plan an orderly replacement of our fixed assets.
Right. So, and again, Phil, that issue will also be taken up in September.
Okay. And lastly, I'd like to make a motion that the LCA Board of Directors contract with a qualified independent auditor to conduct a thorough and complete forensic audit of the books and supporting documents of the association.
Robert,
Can I
correct
ask
me
you a
if I'm wrong.
question?
I believe we've already had a forensic audit, and it's already happened, and so I'm not going to second that motion.
It's very complete. I don't know what it would have.
It was, what was done was a partial cash audit, not a complete forensic
Okay,
audit.
so again, we can take that up in September.
Okay, that's all I need to say. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, next, I want to, since the president is not here and the treasurer is not here, I'm going to table the procurement policies, policy discussion to September. I feel they were intimately involved in the procurement, in organizing this policy, and I think it's better if that's discussed when they're actually here in attendance, particularly given some of the feedback we've heard from the community in the initial comments. So you were heard, and we'll discuss the procurement policy in September. I'm tabling that. Patty, you want to talk about roads?
I do, yeah. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to just talk about the road situation. Eric broached the subject earlier. And so just want to kind of talk about where we are, what we've been able to accomplish since we started kind of really digging into this situation, no pun intended. But what we've come up with is that it's a little bit more of a difficult decision than just a yes or no. Because we need to keep the assets or the members as a whole community in mind, we need to take a step back and we want to really think about what the members want. So what we've talked about doing is a second poll. So we're just about to release what we're calling the LCA Roads poll. And what we hope to do is just have the members weigh in on how they feel about this situation. You know, I think we can all see where the lava inundated property owners are coming from to a degree. And I definitely don't disagree. But we need to make sure that we're doing it in the most prudent and beneficial way possible for the entire community. So that's why we'd like to take a step back and do this member poll so that we can really have a good understanding of how the individual members feel. And we understand that, you know, this isn't a situation that necessarily directly impacts everyone. Each one of us in the community, depending on where we live, has been impacted in different ways. And so we just want to make sure that we're taking all of that into consideration. Some of the other concerns that we have about moving forward quickly, things that we need to further investigate are things like liability and the safety issues. We also need to look further into permits and licensing. We also want to take a look at the human impact of this because we realize that our whole situation has changed here. As most of us know, we can hear the geothermal very clearly across the lava field. So if we start opening up the roads, that's going to cause a lot of commotion. And understandably, it's limited to a point, but it's just something that we need to consider, as well as the environmental impact. You know, I think the one thing that we really haven't been able to get a full understanding of is how do we feel about this geological, feature that we have in this lava field and the fissure system that, came about as this 2018 eruption. There's still some scientific and aesthetic value to the lava field. And so again, just things that we want to take into consideration. We want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to weigh in on this. We have been having discussions with the county. We've gotten some good information. We've been able to move forward as a board, the officers, to just start talking about really what we need to do here and what we feel that we'd like to do, because the Sam Estes proposal is the first, could possibly be many. You could also look at the Kapuka as another request of this magnitude. And so we just really want to make sure that we understand the full ramifications and create some sort of policy around this. And so until we are able to fully flush out all of these things that we've talked about, we really want to move forward, not slowly, but just efficiently. And so, once we make a decision to move forward, let's say, that's something that we can't take back. So that's why we want to just be very careful with what we're doing here. And so at this point, until we can do more research, we are not going to approve the removal of any barriers, and we won't approve any work at this time. And that doesn't mean that stance won't change at some point, but just until we have more data and more information from our community, we just really want to make sure that we're covering all the bases here. Okay. And that's all I have to say about that. The poll itself will be coming out via email as we did before. And we've also been able to now make printouts, so we can have printouts available at the office within a couple of days after it launches. But like I said, we're really interested in hearing everyone's opinion on this. So please feel free to weigh in.
So, Patty, can I jump in at this point?
Absolutely.
So I can understand, and Eric, I was very moved by your presentation.
Yeah.
And I can understand, I myself, fortunately our house survived, but we were kept out of our house for 4 months. And I know what that frustration is like. And I can appreciate how you like to at least get back to your property. And I believe all the members of the board feel similarly about that. And what Patty is saying is we need to move in an intelligent, thoughtful way, because otherwise it will look like the Wild West out there. And things need to be done in a thoughtful, planned manner that encompasses, but people's needs are heard and they're dealt with in the most thoughtful way possible. So what I'm really asking for is patience. I'm asking for your involvement and to work with us in trying to arrive at the best possible policy. Now, this will be front and center when we come back in September. We'll give a report about what progress we've made on this. But there's something that's even more. We have a deadline we're facing. You have received information, and I hope everyone here is on the Leilani email chain. I sent out, the board sent out information on the Kilauea recovery action draft. And this is the county's work to have a buyout of properties that were impacted by the lava. I'm not going to review the whole thing. I will show you again. I'll just share my screen briefly. I do urge everyone here, whether or not your home was impacted or not impacted, but that if you would, let me actually get it up here. There it is. It looks like this. You should go to the website, to Kilauea eruption recovery, recovery.hawaiicounty.gov for this document. Explains an overview of this program, and at the bottom where you provide feedback And the deadline for the feedback for 30-day public comment period is August 18th. So by our next meeting, that deadline would have expired. So I would just want to make a comment here that we are not only here residents of Leilani, but we are also residents of Lower Puna, and that we are part of a larger community, and that we're just not an island unto ourselves, and that how this recovery has impacted the entire Lower Puna should be, in, I believe, my opinion, the forefront of our interest and our attention. And there are organizations, particularly one, some of you might know of, called the MUA Lower Puna, that's been the forefront of this road recovery policy. And there is concern, again, I'm just stating my opinion, this is not the board opinion, so please bear with me, that I don't know anybody who's against people receiving a buyout. We just want to be done in the most thoughtful way possible. And I'll end with this. In 1960, April 1st, Hilo was devastated by a massive tsunami. Totally took out much of downtown Hilo. And there was a comprehensive plan to deal with that damage, the result which is the park you see when you drive to Hilo today, that borders the bay. And that park was not there. It was stores and shops. So our future as residents in Puna are more than just what's going on here in Leilani Estates, but what's going on in the entire Lower Puna area. And I urge everyone to get knowledgeable, to get informed, to speak to your council rep, Ashley Kirkowitz, because this is our future. This is our livelihood. You know, such issues about Pohiki and having access back to the water. So I know these are issues outside of Leilani, but they bear upon the quality of life here. So please do your best. If you want to talk to me privately, email me. But please get involved, and we will talk in more depth about the best way forward for our community. You know, what that lava field should look like. You know, we want it to look like Kalapana. I'm just stating as a question, you know, in terms of what was built out there. Do you want to see it as a park? You know, so these are questions we need to start researching, thinking about, looking at how other communities have handled disasters, and do something that speaks with the voice of the community. Does any other board member want to add to that?
Very well said.
I never saw the bayfront when it had apparently large factories and things on it, because they're the first people who used the water there in Hilo. And I think that what Hilo made of that tragedy is just a jewel. It's just so special. And I'm really hopeful, along with Robert, that we can do something here that people can be proud of, and our community looks good as a result. And maybe they'll visit it to see the spectacular vista. And I don't have any idea how complicated it's going to be to get there, but I think it's well worth our effort to try it.
All right, thank you. I think Sam Estes has his hand raised. Patty, you want to?
Yep, I can do that. Sam, I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand. Ask you to unmute. Are you there, Sam?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, let's see if I can make you see me. Can you see me?
Not yet.
Okay, perhaps
we can hear you.
All right. Well, I didn't have anything to say for the longest time. The meeting's pretty intense there. But I wanted to say hi to Patty and to Alice, because I've met both of you before. I wanted to introduce myself to Mr. Golden and Mr. Denny, whom I haven't met before. And my sole and primary purpose here is to address the proposal that I put before the board in June. I don't really plan to reintroduce it to the public here. I'm addressing the board, and I've think I've done a pretty fair job of keeping you informed of what my plan was and a potential agenda, and asked for questions and issues. There was one primary issue at the very first time when I did meet with you, Alice and Andy, and that was, are there any legal obstacles to this? Disregarding the other questions now of community interest, are there any legal obstacles here? I couldn't find any. In fact, I could find just the contrary. And then I addressed, well, I won't take my word for it. Andy said he could get an answer within 15 minutes. Which then we decided, okay, well, we'll give you 2 weeks. Check with your lawyer.
Sam, I like to answer that in part. Legally, the LCA board is charged with the care and maintenance of its community. That's our responsibility. And that's why we're acting in this prudential, careful way. And I can understand that you want to get in and get things done. If I was in your shoes, I would probably feel similar.
Can I just get an answer? Did you hear back from the lawyer, and did he find any legal obstacles?
Well, so far we don't. Well, there are legal obstacles. We are responsible for the roads.
Absolutely, you are responsible for the road.
Right. So from what we know now, I'm saying what we know now, there is no legal obstacle, in terms of the county saying you cannot lift the barriers. That is not the case.
Okay, well, that was just the first step we have to get past. And I want a resolution to step 1 before I went on any further. From what I gather, you're picturing a larger community and a golden future where we have our own little Kalani Park out there. But the thing is, this is not, it's a beautiful vista, and I respect that. But it's not a vista that belongs to all of us. It belongs to the individual property owners and members of the Leilani Estates. So you can't just say, oh, I love the mountain's ours, and we have an input on that. No, the mountain is sectioned out into little pieces of property that are owned by individuals, and those individuals maintain the same rights as all of us do, because all I'm really asking for is the few rights that we're absolutely guaranteed in our deeds is right-of-way and use of easements and roadways. And that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking that for me, because this is that's the promise to me, that's the promise to you, and the promise to every landowner here. And I don't believe that, although I'm interested and concerned with the public input, that those are subject to my neighbor's vote. In any case, my immediate neighbors, I know there's no problem with my immediate neighbors. I checked with them all. I was out with 4 of them out there yesterday. And just because the other 2 couldn't make it, that were interested. As regards to the county plan that you seem to suggest might be an answer to this, I have read that, and that is so problematic. I have no faith in that resolving itself at any time in the near future. Now, I'm totally behind the idea. I would certainly like to see some of my neighbors who were not insured, who were low income, and who qualify for the rather stringent qualifications to sell your land, that this is great in principle, but I have no confidence that this is going to resolve itself in any kind of practical time scale. The other thing is on that particular issue is it's such a nightmare. These will be discontiguous properties the county is buying. It would be one thing if it was like Lilio Kalani Park or after the floods, where we can just take that plot of land and do something good with it. How is this ever going to resolve itself when you're going to have individuals like myself who don't want to sell and who now share roads with the county, and roads were not mentioned anywhere in the paper. I can see, I don't know who's going to take care of the roads in this case. But anyway, I don't want to argue with the county thing. It's a great idea, but it's no answer for my situation and for my immediate neighbors. We can't just wait for the county to resolve it between lawyers and politicians over the next several years, no matter how beautiful the end picture may look. We've got needs now that could be addressed appropriately with our existing rights. And if anything else, perhaps you could use Leilani, as Eric might suggest, as a test section for opening the roads. I mean, see how it goes. See if I'm doing this responsibly, and if the neighbors are acting responsibly. Gauge the difference between your tourist problem and your trespasser problem when properties are well defined and when it's, as opposed to that, just in no man's land that looks like national park and anybody feels free to walk on. But once people start defining their properties, who, at least on this section of Luana, this 900 foot, is going to be the majority of the properties that are all going to be out there defining their properties. No one has really talked much about building out there. They just want to get back to their land. They want to put up their little tea plants and they want a garden. And as I said, in the agenda I proposed to you, and I don't need to read it to the public because I think, did everybody get, have my communications been getting to you, Mr. Golden?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it was on social media, and Sam, I would like to meet with you. And I mean, you raised some very valid points. Again, no decision is going to be made today on this. And I just want to have a conversation with you so I get better familiarity. I know you've already met with Alice and Andy. So I just think I would like to hear also about what's happening.
That's very good, because that is exactly what I would like to do, is meet with you. I didn't expect a firm decision today.
Right.
But I don't want to be pushed into next year.
No, I get that. I get that. I get that.
No, I very much desire a meeting, and I much prefer face-to-face meetings. This feels very uncomfortable to me. And as far as some of the distractions, though, that go with the construction, I mean, I've been here a long time. I've been here for 20-something years, and I've watched the neighborhood grow. And yeah, I hate the sound of bulldozers. I hate it, because that means someone else is clearing a lot and tearing down the forest. But that's part of being a part of the community. That's what it means. They have property rights also.
Right.
So it's an inconvenience we all put up with as part of a community agreement.
Right. So I just want to thank you, Sam, very much. I have your email address. I'll send you my contact information, and we'll get together certainly by next week. Thank you.
All right, that sounds fine to me, Mr. Golden.
Thank you. Thank you. So look, I want to bring this meeting to a close. Is anyone else? Someone else had their hand
We
raised.
actually have Eric Johnson again. He has raised his hand.
Okay.
Eric, I'm going to go ahead and lower. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Real quick question. Just, I understand with Sam, like you guys weren't going to come to a decision exactly today. I never expected that either. And I understand that you guys have to do your due diligence to make sure you're covered on your end as well. But can you give us a ballpark idea on when we could expect an answer?
Well, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the board. And I hope that we're going to have some policy in place, certainly before the new year. You know, I'm not, you know, certainly we're going to work on this for the next few months and get this done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I would aim for. Definitely, I envision by October, we should have this clear.
Well, let's back it up a little bit because we do have a lot of legwork to do.
Right.
But we'll at least have the member input by this time next month.
Right.
So we can discuss that, and that's going to give us a
That's
bit of
September,
direction.
right. So maybe it'll be November, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So I hope, someone else. Sam, is there something new you want to say? Or is that because your hands up?
Yeah, I am really not enthused by that proposed timeline.
Well, well, we can't, Sam, we're having this poll. We're going to have the results in September. So to expect, you know.
Polls tell you a lot about what the community might desire and what we all might envision as the future of Leilani Estates. But I don't think a poll determines my land rights.
No one said it's going to, Sam.
No.
Well, then that leaves the thing. I've only asked
for it's going to help.
And what we're talking about here is the roadway. You still have the complete ability to do what you'd like to do with your property. Now, I understand that it is, you know, you need to get there to do that. And so your situation is very important to us, but we need to keep in mind every member that we have here. Okay? And so we just need to weigh everyone's opinions and needs in an equal manner to a degree. So that's all we're asking for the time to be able to do. And not even just from the community, but also to devise a plan for how this can happen under what we need to do. Because, you know, the other thing that was talked about is that we all do own the roads and they're a public/private. And so one of the questions in the poll is, to what degree of finish do these roads need to be? And so that's going to be a question that will determine how we can move forward. So it's questions like that that we need a bit of input on, so that then we can start to have a discussion that's based in, you know, some facts.
If I may,
Is this Eric? Oh, Sam?
Sam.
I have both Sam and Eric hands up, but Eric's technically first.
All right.
So let me go to Eric. Go ahead.
So I just want to say I agree with Sam that whole of the community should not affect my rights or legal rights as a property owner. I can understand you guys want that information. But at the end of the day, there are laws in place. And the second thing is, I would be more comfortable with that if there was a consistency. I was never polled, I was never asked when those guardrails or barricades were put in. I was never asked or polled on many decisions that have been made within Leilani. And so all of a sudden, now there's a few individuals who are not necessarily enthused on this idea, and the whole community is getting pulled. I do feel like that's kind of an inconsistency.
Well, Eric, I can speak to the last poll, the first poll that we did, and we received almost 90 responses. And so while it's a small portion of the community, it's much larger than the 34 that were present here tonight. And so it's important for us to be able to allow all the members to speak. And I can definitely see your point about their thoughts not affecting your, you know, legal rights to your land. But again, as Robert has said, and we've said time and time again, we serve the community. We serve the Leilani Estates community. And so we need to take all of those opinions and needs into consideration.
Sam, do you have anything new to add that has not been said already?
Yeah, I think I have one question anyway. If we flip this over, it becomes a question of my being inhibited access to my property, which I didn't know. I'm simply asking for the community to clear the way and not stand in the doorway of me reaching my property.
Right.
Now, if the thing remains up, it becomes an inhibition to me getting there. I've done everything you've asked me to so far, except perhaps wait for an indeterminate plan. I'm in favor of Leilani coming up with an ultimate plan for how they're going to resettle their residents, how they're going to reclaim their roads, a master plan. I'm surprised it hasn't come up previously, but I understand it's been a dynamic 2 years. And also there's very strict budgetary considerations. But that's why I offered to plan the way I did, because I will pay for this. I'm not asking the community to do anything but get out of the way. And I will build a nice road. First I was just wanting to cut a road like one of my neighbors did, just plow something out to his property. But I didn't want to do that. And besides, I had too many neighbors involved to do it that way. So I talked to my contractor. The plan is to build a quality lava road, something that will support a water truck, a dump truck, how people will live in the future on that road. Now it is humbling to have to settle for this kind of road, for lava roads, especially with past history and arguing over roads with neighboring sections. It is humbling to have to accept that. But if we're going to reclaim that property, unless you're anticipating some huge influx of resources, you might have to depend on objects like this and on opportunities like this. This is your opportunity to look good, to look like you're helping resettle that neighborhood. And I would be very surprised if you pass it up. But again, I look forward to meeting you with Mr. Golden and Alice or whoever you feel is appropriate. as soon as possible.
Okay, and maybe
But
Eric wants you to
for in
join us.
advance, I'm not looking for November or December. I'm looking to do this year.
Okay. So it's now 8:31. We're at the end of the meeting. I do want to make a couple of final comments to you all. That, again, I'm speaking personally and perhaps for the board. So I enjoy this challenge that Sam and Eric have brought up, the challenge of how we're going to deal with this lava land. That's a doable thing. You know, it's challenging, it's unknown, you know, and that gets me excited. You know, we're going to come together as a community and individuals work together for the best possible solution. And that really gets my blood going. It's constructive, okay? And I'll put time into that. But I also need to tell you all that we have other responsibilities. We have spent today 4 hours dealing on Zoom calls, dealing with lawyers because of this recent legal challenge. You know, that takes up time. We're doing this as volunteers. And that's why we've asked repeatedly. And that's why we're going to have these individual meetings with Skidmore and, you know, and with Jim Penny, you know, to really try to resolve things. That's the way they can be done. But when our past history, you know, Leilani has a history of legal entanglement that in my opinion, does not serve the community. And so we're going to work together. We're going to get some of these problems solved, but we could spend more time solving these interesting, thoughtful problems if we didn't have these other issues that we had to deal with. And I just want to make that personal appeal to everyone who's there, everyone who's listening. And I appreciate your time. It's late, you've given a lot. And I love living here. I know we all love living here. You know, I want to thank Marianne for the concert she put on, you know, and we should have more events like that under the pavilion. Imagine every weekend on some Sunday having some band coming down and playing music. You know, that's what we should be doing. You know, that's going to rebuild this community, you know, and rebuild the trust and love we have for the land and for each other. You know. Okay, so just thank you very much for tonight. And we're going to meet again in September, and you'll see the progress we've made since then. Thank you.
We have the honor of the...
oh, yeah, I forgot. Alice,
yeah.
thank you. One more great event is just about to happen.
Well, I feel like the worst curmudgeon all the time because I'm always telling you guys about drug dealers and cars being hauled around and people who aren't being respectful to their neighbors. And I'm just like a broken record. And today I have some new and very much different news from Seeker, and that is the arrest that I told you about previously, but it is partly due to a wonderful person who doesn't join groups. He is very patient and persistent. He lives on Pomakai Street. His name is John Segala, and he's been the quiet voice who tries to get past roadblocks that force us to put up with nearby criminal activity. And I've always wondered how he does it. And now that I've become a friend of his, he patiently asks our government to do their job. That is, county governments who are in charge of keeping our neighborhood safe. He says if there's a folder in an inbox for months and months, he's there to remind them that the issue has not been addressed yet. He does not throw up his hands and complain and go away snarling. You can imagine a government office staff saying, you know, this guy just is not going to go away. Let's open up his file. And that happened just a few weeks ago and helped his community there on Pomakai Street out tremendously. They now have a new lease on life, that things are going to be better. And so we'd like to thank him on the board. Robert calls it John Segala, a Leilani hero. Maybe we'll have more of these awards. And He's probably not here tonight. It would be really great if he is here tonight, that he could tell Patty, but he's not the kind of guy who comes to meetings very much. And so we're going to thank him in person with a little committee, and we're going to give him a gift from Leilani, and what more perfect gift than a tree to plant in your yard. And you can plant it especially between you and an eyesore that you don't want to look at. And my personal favorite, so I got to pick out the first one, is a Myers lemon tree, which seem to love Leilani. They all do so well here. And I'm going to tell the Segalas, this way they can keep on making lemonade out of lemon juice, because that's what they're so good at.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Thank you very much. And thank you, John, for your
He is amazing. Everybody needs to get to know this guy. He's really special.
All right. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Phil. And we'll see you all in a month. Aloha.
Thank you,
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.
Thanks for coming.